Hello. Welcome back. Chapter 2, last section here. We're going to talk about the last kind of turn in geography. And this is the one that has basically been taking over the discipline since I kind of got into this, is the spatial turn. And what that means is, right, when we do research in geography and we look at things, it's kind of almost a return to the roots that we're looking at space and place and how they connect, right? Why do things happen where they do? And how does that affect the greater good that we're looking at or whatever? But the interesting thing is we're seeing this in other disciplines. And other disciples, my spelling error. But other disciplines. A great example is biology, right? A lot of biologists will take geography classes now. Because if you are studying animals, right, you want to study the speckled frog of Chicago. One of the things you're going to study is its habitat, where it lives. And how does that relate to other habitats or other animals and how they interact? And so the idea of space as a place is definite. When it comes to, say, economics, real estate is all about geography, right? Some neighborhoods are great to buy houses in. If you're going to buy a house in a neighborhood where the property values are increasing by 10% every year, right? That means in 10 years your house has doubled in value. Or are you going to buy a house in a neighborhood where the property values are static or declining, right? And geography would look at that. Or conversely, what neighborhoods maybe are not expensive now to buy a house in, but may be for various reasons. So economic development. Think about Starbucks, right? When Starbucks opens a store, do they just throw a dartboard and a map and go, let's put one there? No, they do geographical analysis. They look at, well, what does this location have? First of all, how much foot traffic? Do we need a drive through? What is the income of people coming here? Is this a place where people who have money to spend on coffee are going to go? What if it's a place that's only busy at 9 a.m. morning rush and 5 p.m. evening rush? Well, then maybe we're going to have shorter hours, right? So the two trends this occurs in is that, first of all, space and place have a role in most scholarship. We live in a three-dimensional world, so that is inherent in everything we do, right? And the second thing is that the use of GIS, which is Geographical Information Systems, or many of you would think of as computer mapping, that this can be used by many people to analyze that. So you can use GIS with scholarship in other fields like biology or sociology or criminal justice or economics to analyze this place and space relationship. So this kind of finishes up. This class is really about human geography in a lot of ways. And so what are the concerns of it? Where, but not only that, why? So where things happen, but why do they happen where they happen? So I use this example all throughout the semester, right? Millennium Park was built downtown in the early years of the century, right? At the same time it was built, there was a larger tract of land right on the lakefront with beautiful views of Chicago. But the difference is it was not downtown. So why did they build Millennium Park downtown where they had much bigger land on the south side? Where and why? And you can think about that. Maybe if you're questioning it, you can talk about it with your classmates or email me. Why did they build it there? So that's the why. We use these two concepts, space and place, right? Place is where they are. That's the absolute. But space, right? That's the relative, the flavor. And we use many categories to investigate these. We have cultural meaning, political significance, there's distributions and movements, diffusions. We'll cover these, how things move, why they're distributed, and regions, different regions. And so what is a region? A region is an area. Let's give an example of all of these. Okay? This right here is a map using different scales and different lenses to look at human development. The Human Development Index is a set of rankings that's based on several stats. If you look at a population, what is the amount of the population that has graduated college? What is the amount of the population that has a life expectancy over 75 years? You're measuring that to look at things like what has a more developed society for people. How much freedom do they have? So do they have laws about the movement of freedom? Are there laws regarding property ownership by women? All these different things are combined. And what it says is these countries, the darker the red, the more developed the society, the more free, the more developed people can be. Now, that is the scale of looking at countries in the world. So the United States, we know within the United States that you could actually use this and look at a different scale by state. So some states are more developed than others. In other words, in this country, if you want to have a good life, Mississippi is not the way to go. And that's quite simply by looking at if you live in Mississippi, Mississippi has the lowest life expectancy at birth. What's the average length you will have when you're born? It has some of the highest rates of household poverty. It has some of the highest rates of child mortality, where people die before the age of 5. Lots of things that would be considered harmful. And even in Chicago, right, we could argue that, looking at Chicago, not all of Illinois is the same. Not even that. So the scale that you're looking at as well. One of the methods we use, GIS, right, or often remote sensing. This is a satellite image right here of Kansas City. So you can tell a lot by this map. You can tell where the roads are. You can tell where the rivers are. You can actually use these maps to determine the health of the plants, the different levels of green they give off, right? But one thing with that, you have to be wary of geographic profiling. Because, for instance, this doesn't tell you what the situation is on the ground. What if the trees are extremely healthy in this neighborhood? Really good trees. That might lead you to believe that it's a really nice neighborhood. But you go in and you find out, no, it's just people like their trees. There's lots of them, but the housing is substandard. Or the people have a high rate of crime. Ground truthing says that you need to go in on the ground. Literally go in on the ground and look at things through a fine-teeth comb. You need to use a wider range of qualitative and quantitative techniques. Not just looking at stats, not just looking at images, but talking to people and perceptions. Another use for GIS is that it's going beyond government use and corporate research. I like this one, the trend of democratization. This is open source mapping. It's like a Google Maps, but anybody can log on and make changes. Okay? And so sometimes there's crisis mapping. So a few years back, there was an earthquake in Nepal, right near Mount Everest. Lots of people died, and they needed to have a lot of, help sent in. But the maps were out of date because the earthquake destroyed many bridges. So what a lot of geographers did was they got most recent satellite images, pictures from space, that showed where the damaged bridges were, and they looked at it and they found them on this map, and they would make a little note or take the bridge off the map so people would have a correct map. Open mapping, right? A lot of these are done by global networks. You can do this anywhere you have access to a computer. So it opens up that knowledge base. All right, you have made it to the end of another chapter. And as I said before, these chapter summaries are really good kind of, summation points. I'm not going to read these to you, but they're up there for you to look at. They're also in the PowerPoint. Just kind of a way to kind of sum up what we talked about. So thank you very much, and I'll see you in chapter 3.